This episode of the Bari Chronicles is proudly brought to you by Bariatric Support Australia.
Hi everyone, I'm Tash.
And I'm Damo.
And we are so excited to bring you this week's episode of the Bari Chronicles. This week, we are so privileged to have with us one of the amazing dietitians from Dr. He's team, Megan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, guys. Happy to be here.
Amazing. And I guess coming up to Christmas, you guys are pretty flat out at the moment.
Yeah, we're definitely busy getting our early post-op appointments kind of in before the Christmas period. And then, we'll be closed over that kind of 2-week break. Then we'll be back running again in Jan.
Wow. So does Dr. He do very many surgeries in the lead up to Christmas, or is it more just sort of seeing the people that have had surgery and...
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure there are operations in that week leading up to Christmas. So I have some initial consults, which is where I will have the appointment with patients prior to surgery and just going through, I guess, the education, getting them set up. But those patients will be having surgery in the new year. And then just general bookings of those kind of early post-ops to make sure that we're checking in on them before the break as well.
But they're not going...
It's always fun.
Yes.
So you mentioned the pre-op education. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess that first appointment, once someone's decided they're interested in surgery and they've spoken to a surgeon, they will have an initial appointment with a dietitian. And so the purpose of that appointment is for us to kind of just get to know the patient. So obviously a bit about their history when it comes to their experience with their weight and their diet, also their medical history, their bloods, that kind of thing. But then the second half of that kind of initial appointment is really focused on education, getting them ready for surgery. So we really will cover the pre and post-op diet, and the information we kind of give is quite, a detailed booklet that really is something that patients can follow and have access to once they're kind of in the situation of getting set up. It will be kind of, my conversation with them a bit around doing the very low calorie diet before surgery, what that looks like for them, and then an overview of the first 4 to 6 weeks of the texture modifier.
Yeah, so that pre-operative diet experience is often, particularly in support groups and people's personal experiences that they share, can often be quite a challenging time. Do you have different recommendations depending on the patient, or is it quite a stringent 2 weeks on a VLED or VLCD shake and that's for everyone, or is there the scope for people to sometimes do like a modified sort of food diet as well?
Yeah, great question. I guess it's definitely something that we can modify depending on the patient. We kind of obviously look at if the patient tolerates shakes, so their like previous experience with shakes or meal replacements, or even like their general allergies or intolerances as well. So in some cases, so people do have a lactose intolerance, so can't use some of the shakes. We can look at like, alternative products that are vegan, or we can look at kind of doing a modified version where we can do a partial meal replacement with shakes and also with food still meeting the requirements of the VLCD as well.
Yep. Awesome.
Interesting. Because, it's always a bit of a shock for people, and I know I went through it. I got to like day 8. Mine was only 10 days, but day 8, I was vomiting every time I'd try and drink a shake. And so I just fasted for the last couple of days because I was like, I don't want to wreck what I'm doing. And I didn't have a dietitian. It was just what the surgeon had given me. And it was really hard just not having that contact with someone to go, hey, every time I drink this, I vomit. Is there anything else I can do? And, so I guess by day 10, I was happy to go under general anaesthetic and have my stomach cut out.
So quite pleased to offer it up by that stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you actually decide that this was something that you were interested in doing? Like where did a passion for dietetics start with you?
Yeah, I guess that's probably a long history now. But yeah, when I was graduating high school, I wanted to do something in health, and I was looking at uni degrees, and then I decided that was like a bit too broad, so I wanted to do food science. So that was my first degree, a Bachelor of Food and Nutrition Science, and then at that point, I was tossing up between continuing on to study dietetics or like kind of working in the food industry. But then I kind of decided I wanted to work with people, and like I liked that element of my work experience of it actually being a role where you're talking to people and supporting people. So then I went on to do my master's. And my first job out of uni was actually in a meal delivery company that's like sold like a meal program to support weight loss. So I kind of fell into the weight loss area just looking for my first original job, but then actually realized like it's such a complex space that really, needs people to be supporting patients, and it's not as simple as maybe, people don't understand. So yeah, then I got the role that I'm in now, and I've been in it for 3 years, and I actually do have a massive passion for it, and a lot of knowledge that I wouldn't have had originally, that's for sure.
So Megan, I'm interested in this because I always had a preconceived idea of dietitians from all the years that I've been trying to do diets and everything. And then when I had weight loss surgery, over the years, I sort of discovered that a dietitian that specialises in bariatrics is very different, usually, to a dietitian who is specialising in just dietetics and helping people with nutrition. And how did you go with that sort of crossover?
Yeah, for sure. Completely agree. Like bariatrics is a specialist area. So this isn't something that like people have like automatic experience in. The uni degree doesn't actually teach us in detail how to manage people that are going through bariatric surgery. So I think when I first was in this role, like I had great support and mentoring, and I find this position is very much more clinical compared to general dietetics. So it's obviously understanding the procedure and nutrition combined and being able to implement, plans with patients that are more complex, but a bit more specific, I guess, to like general dietetics and weight management.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's so important that we have conversations like this, because I think I was about 10 years old when I very first went to a dietitian. And of course, a lot of knowledge has been gained in the years since then, but even the difference just between somebody that we might see if we're hoping to lose a few kilos and somebody that we see after bariatric surgery or prior to bariatric surgery, there is just such a different knowledge base and skill set and all of those things. So we really do appreciate the fact that there are people who are specialising in the care of people within our community, and we're very, very grateful for it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Because it makes a huge difference, particularly when somebody has lived within a bigger body for such a long time, and they come into a space that's in the past been probably quite traumatic, and we don't know what to expect. It can be very, very intimidating. But what would you say to somebody that's perhaps about to embark on this journey when they come into the office to see you for the first time? What can they expect?
Yeah, great question. I guess I feel like what our clinic does well is that support aspect for sure. Like I think there is a very much a non-judgment space, but unlike we've spoken about that specialist sense. So this is like the area or the patients we see every day, and we kind of understand everyone has a different lived experience, but there are different aspects, I guess, of like having challenges with your weight that we can obviously understand at a deeper level.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just thinking it would probably help as well, like for each dietitian having a team of dietitians that are working there. I imagine that would be, you'd be able to bounce things off each other and, when things pop up.
For sure. Yeah, we have 3 dietitians in our team, and it's really great to be able to, I guess, talk about complex cases within ourselves, but also within like our broader team of our nurses and surgeons, but even just on a diet and vitamin and deficiencies and that kind of thing.
So on the deficiencies and the vitamin deficiencies and how common do you find the vitamin deficiency especially?
Very common, yeah. So we'll do a screen for pre-op nutritional bloods. So often they can be back in my consult, or no matter what, like the nurse or the surgeon will touch base on those results prior to surgery. And it is very common for people to have deficiencies going into surgery. So we'll often see like iron, vitamin D, B12 as things like already that people have a deficiency in that we need to plan for separately. Patients all start supplements after surgery, which I'm sure you guys are aware, but we may need to treat them specifically with dosages to increase them back within normal range.
I know that prior to my bariatric surgery, I was low in vitamin D probably most of my adult life. And was always taking a vitamin D supplement. I was low in iron all of my life. And finally now both are good, but it has taken consistent adherence to a supplementation routine that I don't always love. I'm going to be honest. I really don't always love it, but I do it because feeling like crap is not the goal. So yeah. I think that the vitamin adherence thing is probably one of those things that I don't know what you find with your patients, but I know for us on the support group, we often see that the people do struggle to stay adherent to the vitamin regime. What would you say to people who are listening that do struggle in that area?
Yeah, I'd say like it's always good to not be too hard on yourself, like especially when you're starting a new habit. Like a lot of people have never taken supplements in their whole life, and then we're asking them to start this, quite intense regime. So like I always talk about it as like habit building in a way. Like obviously the first part is like making sure they tolerate the supplement. So working out, what they're needing, whether we can do a chewable, a capsule, etc. So like talking through brands and options, but then thinking about how to build it in as a habit into your day. So whether it's, having a pill organizer box, or whether it's setting alarms, or whether it's, they're next to your kettle and they're, with your coffee in the morning, or next to your toothbrush at night. And the repetitiveness is how you make it something that doesn't feel like as much effort. So
that's actually very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very good. The whole habit building. And is that something that you like, that type of practice, is that something that you expand on even for learning about new ways to eat and how to nourish ourselves?
Yeah, for sure. I kind of talk about habits and behaviors quite a bit in my appointments, because I think like the understanding of how like your food choices are impacted by your habits and behaviors is really important. And I think in that initial, change of your eating after surgery, that's quite a big part of it, that you've like completely wiped all your habits around food, or you start realizing the habits that are popping back up because you've had them for 10, 20 years.
Yep. Oh yeah. 100%.
I think one of the hardest, something that we do see is when people are not necessarily hungry, and they're like, oh, I could go 2 days without really eating because I'm just not feeling hungry. And it's like it's one of those habits as well that still need to have the right nutrition, and just ignoring it isn't right either.
Yeah. That actually does happen a lot. I know for me, I felt so overwhelmed by the habit part of my life, all of the ways that I dealt with food and my emotions, and they were just like joined constantly. And I felt I didn't know how to unpick that. And when I had the surgery, there was a very clear moment where I realized, my goodness, I think I've just been like eating my feelings for my entire life. How do I actually know what I need to eat? So is that a question that a patient can ask of a dietitian? And what is the process for helping people know how to eat after surgery?
Yeah, I think that's like, one of the most important parts of us and in our sessions, or like what I work on with patients, I guess specifically, like in those like first 6 weeks, I always say to everyone, like, it is just trial and error, like you are just literally learning how to eat again. But then after you kind of get used to your tolerance, it's like working out what the best routine is for you and like your hunger and your lifestyle and your, your nutrition requirements. So yeah, I like what you mentioned before, I guess, around people like not feeling hungry and then going, a day without eating. Like that's something I really make sure that I talk to people about, because completely agree. It's like after surgery, you don't get hungry, but that doesn't mean you still don't need to eat and build good habits, because that won't last forever. Like often that might be that initial, honeymoon.
Yep.
First year where you get no hunger, but then down the track, if you've not eaten lunch for a year, but then you start getting hungry, it's harder to then implement that change as well. But yeah, when it comes to like building a routine, I think that's a really important conversation to have with your dietitian, because we can really talk about, listening into your hunger and fullness cues, figuring out, how long you've been awake for versus when your first meal is, like how many meals you're having in a day, etc. So yeah,
That's very interesting. I don't think anybody has ever touched on when we wake, how often we should eat, when we should, like what is the window from when we wake up in the morning to when we should be having sort of that first meal of the day?
Yeah, so like I guess like for me, it's like it's not a hard and fast rule for anyone when it comes to timing of food. Like the conversation I'll have with people is about regular eating, and obviously regular eating can mean different things to different people. But say if somebody's waking up at 6 a.m. and their first meal's at 2 p.m., they've potentially been awake for 8 hours of the day without eating. So to me, that's not regular eating. So, and I often find if like I say that to someone and they're like, oh, yeah, wow, that's true. Like I'm like, okay, figure out what you feel like your earlier meal should be, where that sits in your day based on your work, or when you feel like you might be ready to have something. And then sometimes people will kind of be like, oh yeah, well, I guess I'm kind of having a coffee and maybe that's like stopping that meal time, and, kind of just talk through it in a way.
Yeah, look, I think that I spent probably the first 14 or 15 months of my post-bariatric journey not eating regularly, even though I would tell my dietitian, yes, I'm eating regularly. No, I didn't. And I would frequently skip breakfast in preference for the coffee, and then maybe exactly what you said, it was sort of around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon when I'd start to get hungry. And then by the time I was picking up the kids after work, and then coming home, I was then hungry and I would graze. And that was a very
exactly what I did.
Unhelpful habit.
Start grazing in the afternoon until go to bed. And
also what I found is that my blood sugar, I started having a lot of reactive hypoglycemia, and that sort of kicked off at about 18 months post-op. And it wasn't until I addressed that my habitual not eating in the mornings that everything sort of started to even out. It doesn't mean that it never happens anymore, but I am very disciplined in making sure that I do at least eat something in the morning now, because I know what happens with my blood sugar if I don't. So it's very, very interesting that you say that. Perhaps that is like just a commonly widespread thing that so many of us do. I suppose it must be for you to have brought it up.
Yeah, I think like what I said is because it is habits from like previous eating patterns before surgery. A lot of people, like when I do, a bit of a diet history in that first appointment, they'll be like, oh, well, I don't eat in the morning because I don't get hungry. And then it's the same, like kind of increased in volume or, all the energy coming in later in the day, when then you're also more susceptible to probably having cravings and overeating because your hunger is quite intense at that point. And what can happen is like your hunger cues are actually skewed as well. Like you're not actually getting the right hunger cues because you missed the cue, or your body's just used to not eating anymore at that time. Yeah.
Can you explain hunger cues to us?
Yeah, I can try. So I guess like how I describe it, like I'll have a conversation with people about their, post-op feelings of hunger. Like I'll kind of about, are you hungry? Like see what they think about it. And I think it's, quite a tricky one because the hunger or the appetite after surgery is definitely not the same as it was pre-surgery. So like it can take a bit of time to really understand what a hunger cue is for you after surgery. And often it's not, it maybe not be something that they feel for quite a bit of time, maybe till after like, even 6 months. Some patients won't feel hungry at all. Maybe a sense of feeling tired or weak or like, that kind of feeling, but not necessarily hunger. But like, I guess if we think of like physical hunger as a sensation, like the way you can kind of describe it is like it kind of builds up slowly. Like it's not this like intense urge, like I need to eat something, right this second. It's like a feeling that will come like slowly over, a period after you haven't eaten. It's kind of more felt in the stomach, and you're kind of thinking about it as it'd be satisfied by any type of food. Like, you just need to eat something. That's kind of how I would describe it, hunger specifically. But yeah, it kind of varies person to person of what that means to them as well.
But do you think that, well, I think that in me anyway, I probably didn't, because I had a long history of avoiding breakfast and doing that pattern sort of later in the afternoon. That's definitely when I used to eat, was at night. I wonder if I really ever understood my hunger cues, because I feel like I never really noticed them until it was intense and I needed to eat, and then I would definitely overeat.
Ravenous cues.
Yeah, I wonder how that. I wonder if there is something in that, because I know a lot of people that I've spoken with have asked me about hunger cues. What are they, Tash? Like how do I know what it is? So maybe all of us Barry folks just need to be that little bit more aware of when we start feeling like, hey, maybe I'm hungry. Maybe that is actually a hunger cue.
Yeah.
And regular eating helps with your body, like your hunger cues kind of going to those time frames as well. It's like the more consistent you are, like your body's getting used to you eating at those times. So like a lot of the time, if people are eating consistently, their hunger cues kind of somewhat are around their meal times, is what you'd think.
Well, that's great. That's very helpful.
It is.
Very, very helpful to know, because I think that will help people in understanding the importance of getting into that habit and good routine.
Yeah. People that don't eat breakfast and then start eating breakfast will start then feeling hungry in the morning. Like that's definitely how your body adapts. So
I've noticed that because I've deliberately sort of been making myself eat in the morning, and I've noticed that now I do actually get hungry earlier. But as a sort of side effect of that, I guess without even really trying, I've lost like 5 kilos in the last couple of months. It's like, wow, okay, so maybe that has something to do with it, pushing my metabolism to work a bit better or whatever it is.
Does that work? We've heard a lot of things about, about metabolic health and making sure that we're supporting our metabolism and things like that. Regular meals help, I'm assuming?
Yeah, for sure. I guess like our metabolism is quite like a complex part of our body in a sense. So with like if we're thinking about your metabolic rate, so definitely like post-bariatric surgery, your metabolic rate goes down in a sense because you are in that weight loss phase. And then if we think about, weight loss post-surgery, in my mindset, if you're eating regularly, like it also is probably impacting your energy intake through the day as well. So it's like also recreating potentially a deficit, and that could be impacting your weight loss.
Excellent.
Wow. So there are obviously quite a lot, a number of, I guess, myths that people preconceived ideas of what we've, I guess, learnt or been indoctrinated with previous diets and
Diet culture.
all that sort of stuff. So what do you think are some of the big myths that you get to address when people are coming in for the first appointments or,
Yeah, I think it's such a big area, and it's always quite like upsetting in a sense when you like hear people like have such misinformation of something that they feel like is true because of like ill-informed advice, whether it's of other people or social media. So yeah, I generally will ask people their history with dieting, or like, that side of things to see what their knowledge is, but also what they've done in the past. And I guess like the ones that I find like the most interesting can be like when people feel like eliminating a specific food or food group is actually a diet versus that's like a treatment for like, a condition or an intolerance. Like I think that's quite, to me, that's always a standout. It's like when someone will be like, oh, well, I went gluten-free. I'm like in my mind, I'm like, I don't understand where they kind of thought that was like related to weight loss specifically. But again, that just falls under that, they've read something somewhere and they've not got it communicated correctly.
I mean, I have celiac disease. So I am gluten free, but I wish I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I have to eliminate that, but not by choice. It's just for health. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I see a lot of people seem to think that carbs are the devil, that a whole food group should be eliminated, but I disagree, and I know that you would also disagree with that. What is the importance of having the balance right, or of eating just well and healthily after?
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, like the word balance. In the meal, in your diet, in your headspace, like every aspect of it for sure. And like literally, and figuring that part out is really hard as well. Like after such a history of like restriction and and like we've even just spoken about like misinformation around eating. But yeah, like I think focusing on those conversations quite early on post-op is something I like to do, because like a lot of people will have that fear around food and fear around eating carbs, and it's like, well, not eating them isn't like that restriction will eventually come, crashing down and be worse for somebody's ability to have a sustainable diet long term. So I think like with portion size after surgery, like it's definitely different to someone who hasn't had surgery. So nutrition goals and what we're looking for and what we're wanting to focus on is slightly different. But I don't know if you guys have used this in like your meals or like your advice in the past, but like the bariatric plate model is something I talk to people about quite a bit, because that's the portion of like protein versus like low starchy veg versus carbs. So I think using that is quite a visual way to talk about it, but like it also has the right priorities to help with like keeping the portion size, at a good point, and like the meal being satisfying as well.
I totally agree. I still have my portion plate, and I'm 6.5 years post-op, but I still have it. I don't use it all the time, but when I'm serving out, I always go over to the drawer that it's in. I look at it, and then I look at my little plate, which are all about the same size, and I just make sure that my portions are still a similar size to that, because it really is very helpful. Well, I think it is anyway, just having that understanding and it being repeated to me over and over and over again. It kind of, I think it sort of trains you a little bit.
Well, it's those things that the surgery doesn't fix, isn't it? We don't suddenly have good habits because we've had surgery. We don't. There is so much to learn, and if we are just solely relying on the surgery and how that makes us feel, then we're not going to get the great results that we want. And, I think it's sort of a bit of a sabotage for us.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think that's quite an important part of like thinking about surgery in the concept of it being a tool to create lifestyle change. And like sometimes people are, I guess, kind of not I don't want to say not believing, but they kind of get tricked into thinking that the surgery is going to do the work or keep the change long term. But the long term change is based on lifestyle, diet, exercise, habits, mental health, etc.
Agreed. Wholeheartedly agree. And I think having conversations, like I always like to stress how important it is when people message me or ask me how important it is for people to maintain that connection with their team, how important it is to maintain that connection with their bariatric dietitians, with their psychologists, with their exercise physiologists if they're seeing one, just as good maintenance. Some of the guys on our admin team on Bariatric Support Australia, they're even longer post-op than me, and they still see their dietitians every 6 months. And I love it because it's just that, it's that check-in. It's that, okay, well, you know, how's everything going? Are there any challenges? Is there anything that I can help with? And I think that that's really, really important because I know for me, it took probably a good 5 years for me to have some degree of confidence in the fact that, yeah, I'm actually doing okay with my eating now. I actually know how to not harm myself with food. Just my dietitian being willing to reinforce that to me. You're doing well. This is great. Or let's adjust this. It's really so important. Do you find that people that stay in touch are being able to, you know, just really experience long-term health benefits?
For sure, I completely agree. I think long-term follow-up is really important and something that I advocate for a lot. And I think like what I kind of say to people too is like it gives you time to like have a commitment to yourself to reflect on how you feel like you're going as well. Like, you know, our lives are busy, you know, we can all just kind of get caught up and, you know, forget and not prioritize things. But it's like that conversation or that appointment, just one, let someone else like run their eyes over how you're going and may point out things that like, you know, I could see something that a patient isn't thinking may potentially not be suiting them or, you know, their goals. And have that conversation. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So what are your favourite ways to look after your own health?
Ooh, that's a good one. For me, I guess I like to do like exercise is something that's important in my life. Definitely like self-care would be like walking. I live near the beach, love walking.
Me too.
That's definitely something I do like for self-care. And then exercise, I do Pilates and gym. And then I guess like I'm quite into my meal planning for myself. I'll plan my meals in advance. I'll cook leftovers, like that kind of aspect makes me feel good about my week and my health. So I think, yeah, pre-planning, prioritizing some self-care and yeah, my exercise routine.
I love that. Are you a like plan on a Saturday, shop on a Sunday kind of girl?
Well, actually, I currently have a routine of going and doing like an online order and then click and collect on a Saturday morning. And then I'm good for the week.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely love that. Now, just a nosy question. Is there a particular planning app that you like, or are you like a lo-fi girly and just like to write it all out?
That's a good one. No, I do just write it all in my phone notes. Actually, I don't use an app. There probably is a good like shopping meal app out there, but I'd have to double check. I haven't recommended one in a while.
There's a lady, one of our moderators actually in Bariatric Support Australia. She uses some type of like planning app like for all of her meal plans, and she shops from that, and I just go, wow, but yeah, I'm an old-fashioned paper and pen kind of person, write it all out, and I need to get back to doing the online ordering because I think it does make it a lot quicker. And I would probably buy less random crap that I don't need. So that's probably another good tip. So,
100%.
so favorite things that you make, are there any meals? Because we don't usually ask dietitians, what do you eat?
It's a good way. Yeah, it's a good point. I do agree. Like sometimes I'm like, obviously no one needs to like follow my diet. Like we're all
No, of
individuals.
course.
Like, and I think, yeah, sometimes that can be the assumption. It's like if I'm telling people what I'm eating, that's what they should be eating, and that's definitely not the fact. But yeah, I'm a pretty repetitive eater personally. Like I'll snacks wise, like I'll always have like yogurt, cheese and crackers, apple every day. No, without a doubt. That's like my like repetitiveness. Dinners wise, like I'll probably have things that I like feel confident cooking with on rotation that don't cost, a lot of brain power after I've been working all day and get home and don't want to be trying something new. So I think that something I've realized, don't try and cook something you haven't cooked before on a night that you're tired.
Agreed.
Yeah. But yeah, like, yeah, literally normal things for my like meals. Like I'll have like a fajita night, like salmon poke bowl, steak and veg. I'll do like chicken wraps. I'll do like a Vietnamese noodle salad. I'll do
I love it.
yeah, like that's like very, very probably Aussie standard cooking.
No, but it's really great for people to understand and know, hey, like we can like that. That's just that's just food. It's not bariatric food, but it's just it's food, and the same is true for bariatric people. We still just eat food, like it's just food.
Definitely. Everything I've just said can fit into a person's diet after bariatric surgery.
Yeah,
It's just
100%.
portion and balance. Yeah.
Yep, 100%. Actually, last night I was having I like to make a big silver side on the weekend, and then I slice it up so that there's meat like for the kids for midweek. And yesterday was just a crazy day, and I said, I'm sorry, everybody. I think it's going to be like toasties tonight, and I managed to burn a toastie. So sometimes, I know. Sometimes the mental load of much cooking at all can be really, really hard. So definitely don't try new things midweek. Well, that's my rule anyway. I have that same rule.
I think ours last night was just cold meat and salad, rolls or wraps or whatever.
Or whatever you
everyone
want.
could find, because it was an extremely busy day, and sometimes you just can't be bothered. I think when we are going into surgery and we have our surgery, I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to go, now I have to change the whole way I cook and everything. But like you said, sometimes it's just about portion size and balance. And we don't have to memorise some cookbook and only eat from that. We can still live our lives. So,
Yes, agreed.
Megan, thank you so much for joining us today. We've had a great time.
Yes, that was a great chat.
And we hope we can do it again next year.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you guys for having me. And yeah, it's been lovely chatting, and definitely look forward to speaking with you guys next year.